Some miracles wear presidential suits at a dimly lit gas station just off exit 23. Marcus Thompson was about to learn that heroes don't always have wings. Sometimes they drive black SUVs and wear navy blazers. But he didn't know that yet. Right now, all he knew was that his gas tank was empty, his wallet was nearly bare, and his 8-year-old daughter Sophie was asleep in the back seat, still wearing her debate team uniform from a competition she couldn't participate in. He had no way of knowing that in the next few minutes, a chance encounter would change everything. The orange needle on the gas gauge trembled just below empty as Marcus Thompson guided his old Honda Civic into the fluorescent glow of the Shell station. The dashboard clock blinked 9:47 p.m. Way too late for his 8-year-old daughter to still be out on a school night, but they hadn't had a choice. The diner where he worked his second job had been short-staffed again. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. Sophie was fast asleep in the back seat, her dark curls falling across her face. She still wore her debate team uniform, the one she'd put on so hopefully this morning before her school's academic competition, the one she ended up watching from the audience because her debate folder had fallen apart completely during preparation. The memory of her trying not to cry made his throat tight. He pulled up to pump number 4 and turned off the engine. The car shuddered to a stop, and Marcus held his breath, praying it would start again when they needed to leave. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his wallet, worn leather that was as tired as he felt. Inside he found exactly $5.33. It'll have to do, he whispered to himself, even though he knew it wouldn't be enough to get them through tomorrow. The November wind bit through his thin jacket as he stepped out of the car. Above him, the gas station's lights hummed, drawing moths that danced in desperate circles. Kind of like him, Marcus thought, just trying to keep moving even when it felt impossible. He hadn't always been in this situation. 3 years ago, before Caroline's cancer took her, they'd been okay. Not rich, but okay. His wife had been the organized one, the one who could make a teacher's assistant's salary and his janitor's pay stretch like magic. Now, even with his second job at the diner, he was drowning in medical bills and trying to keep Sophie's world from falling apart. The gas pump's digital display flickered to life as he swiped his card, praying it wouldn't be declined. Relief flooded through him when it worked. The bank wouldn't process the automatic payment for the electric bill until tomorrow. He started pumping the gas, watching the numbers tick up slowly. Through the car window, he could see Sophie shifting in her sleep. Her debate trophy rolled slightly on the seat beside her, the small plastic figure catching the fluorescent light. That trophy was her most prized possession, a second-place award from last year when things hadn't been quite so tight. She studied with it every day, practicing her arguments in their apartment's small living room, preparing for competitions just like she'd seen on C-SPAN. Her room was covered with posters of political leaders, carefully cut from magazines she'd found at the school library. She knew all their speeches, all their historic moments. Sometimes Marcus caught her standing in front of her mirror, practicing her debate stance. "For when I become a senator," she'd say. The pump clicked off at $5.21. Marcus replaced the nozzle, his hands shaking slightly from the cold, or maybe from the worry. That was 12 cents less than he had, but he couldn't even buy a piece of gum with the difference. Marcus slid back into the driver's seat, the old springs creaking under his weight. The sound made Sophie stir. "Are we home, Daddy?" she mumbled, her eyes still closed. "Almost, baby," he said softly, "just getting some gas." "Can we practice my opening statement tomorrow?" she asked, drifting back to sleep. "Mrs. Peterson said I almost had the perfect introduction last time." Marcus gripped the steering wheel harder, his knuckles turning white. "Sure, sweetheart, we'll practice tomorrow." He turned the key in the ignition, holding his breath again. The engine coughed once, twice, then rumbled to life. Marcus let out the breath he'd been holding, but the knot in his stomach remained. As he pulled away from the pump, the dashboard light caught the dried tears on Sophie's cheeks, evidence of her disappointment from the competition she couldn't participate in. Behind him, a large black SUV turned into the gas station, its headlights briefly illuminating the inside of Marcus's car, but he was too lost in his thoughts to notice the familiar figure stepping out, or to realize that sometimes hope comes when you least expect it, from places you'd never imagine. Earlier that day, Marcus had rushed through the empty hallways of Riverside Elementary, pushing his janitor's cart faster than usual. The squeak of his work boots echoed off the lockers as he checked his watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. If he hurried, he might make it to Sophie's debate competition before the final round. "Hey Thompson," Slow down before you crash into something. Jerry, the head custodian, called out from the supply closet. The older man's face softened when he saw Marcus's expression. Sophie's competition today, right? Marcus nodded, spraying cleaner on the last window. She's been preparing so hard, Jerry, even with those old notebooks. Speaking of supplies, Jerry hesitated, reaching into his pocket. Listen, I know things have been tight since Caroline. We're fine, Marcus cut him off, wiping the window with quick, firm strokes. Really, but thanks. The clock struck 3, and Marcus stripped off his work gloves. Got to go. Sophie's competition starts at 4, then I've got the dinner shift at Ray's. You can't keep burning the candle at both ends. Marcus, Jerry called after him, but Marcus was already halfway down the hall. The drive to Sophie's school took 20 precious minutes. He found her in the classroom, sitting at a desk, her small shoulders slumped in defeat. Her teacher, Mrs. Peterson, was kneeling in front of her. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Peterson said when she saw him. Her debate folder just fell apart during preparation, and we tried using a binder. But Sophie looked up, her eyes red but determined not to cry. It's okay, Daddy. I still got to watch the other students compete. Marcus felt the familiar stab of failure. Baby, order up. Ray's booming voice cut through the memory as Marcus tied his waiter's apron later that evening. The diner was packed. Friday night regulars mixed with travelers passing through. Every table meant potential tips, money that could go toward new school supplies. You're a million miles away tonight, said Maria, the night cook, sliding 2 plates across the counter. Everything okay? Marcus balanced the plates on his arm. Sophie's debate materials finally gave out. She couldn't participate in her competition today. Maria clicked her tongue. That child lives for academics. Listen, my daughter just graduated college. Has tons of supplies? Thanks, Maria, but we'll figure it out. Marcus managed a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Table 6 is waiting. By closing time, his tip pocket felt promisingly heavy. In the break room, he counted it out, $42. Not bad for a Friday, but still not enough. New debate supplies, the kind that would actually last, would cost at least $60. Marcus, Ray appeared in the doorway, his round face concerned. Johnson called in sick again. Any chance you could cover his shift tomorrow? Tomorrow was Saturday, Sophie's one day to practice without school or homework getting in the way. They always went to the library together, Marcus helping while Sophie worked on her debate techniques, just like Caroline used to do. Marcus started to refuse, then thought of those broken materials. Yeah, Ray, I can do it. Now, sitting in his car at the gas station with $5 worth of gas in his tank, that pride felt like a luxury he couldn't afford. Sophie shifted in her sleep again, mumbling something about constitutional amendments, and Marcus felt tears burning behind his eyes. The black SUV's headlights swept across his rearview mirror again, briefly illuminating Sophie's sleeping face. In that flash of light, she looked so much like Caroline, it made his heart ache. He didn't notice the tall figure at the next pump watching him through the window, didn't see the recognition, and something deeper, understanding, crossed the stranger's face. The gas station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Barack Obama stood at pump number 5, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the concrete. He'd stopped here by chance, a random exit off the highway after a late community meeting. Now, something about the old Honda Civic at the next pump caught his attention. Through the window, he could see a little girl in a school uniform, clutching what looked like a small trophy like it was precious gold. Her eyes were barely open, watching him with a mix of awe and disbelief. But it was the man at the pump that made Obama pause, memories flooding back from his own childhood, his own mother's struggles. The father's shoulders were slumped with exhaustion as he stared at the digital display, watching pennies tick by. Obama recognized that look, had seen it on his own mother's face too many times to count. The man's jacket was thin for November, and even from here, Obama could see his hands trembling slightly as he replaced the gas nozzle. Sophie's heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. She watched as the man she'd studied in civics class, whose speeches she'd memorized, took a step toward their car, then stopped as her father turned around. Dad was so tired he nearly bumped into the former president, his eyes fixed on the ground. Sorry, Marcus mumbled, stepping aside. Didn't see you there. Obama's voice was gentle, different from how it sounded on TV during speeches. No problem, man. Long night? Something in his tone made Marcus look up. Sophie held her breath, watching her father's eyes widen with recognition. She could see him struggling to maintain his composure, to act normal, even as his hands gripped his wallet tighter. Yeah, Marcus managed. You could say that. Sophie couldn't take it anymore. She sat up straight, pressing her face against the window. The movement caught both men's attention, and Obama's face broke into a warm smile. Looks like you've got a future leader there, he said, nodding towards Sophie. Marcus glanced back at his daughter, and Sophie saw something flash across his face, pride mixed with pain. Yeah, she loves debate, watches all your speeches. Obama stepped closer, and Sophie scrambled to roll down her window, her fingers fumbling with excitement. The cool night air rushed in, carrying the smell of gas station coffee and the faint scent of aftershave. Hi, she breathed, hardly believing this was real. I'm Sophie. I have your poster above my bed, and I practice your debate techniques every day, and I watched when you gave that speech about hope. And, she stopped, realizing she was rambling. Obama chuckled, but it wasn't a laughing at you kind of laugh. It was warm, like he was genuinely happy to hear everything she had to say. That's some serious dedication. You debate on a team? Sophie's excitement dimmed slightly. She glanced at her father, who was standing very still, his wallet still clutched tight in his hand. I did, but today my materials. She trailed off, not wanting to make her dad feel bad. But Obama had already noticed. His eyes took in everything: the worn trophy in Sophie's lap, the old uniform she wore, the way Marcus stood like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He remembered his own mother, working multiple jobs, making sacrifices he wouldn't understand until years later. You know, Obama said, leaning against their car like he was settling in for a real conversation. I had a teacher once who told me something I never forgot. Want to hear it? Sophie nodded eagerly. Marcus stood frozen, watching this surreal scene unfold at a gas station just off exit 23, sometime after 10 p.m., on an ordinary Friday night. She said that being a leader isn't about having the best materials or even winning every debate. It's about having the courage to speak your truth, especially when things get tough. Obama's eyes met Marcus's as he continued. It's about showing up every day, trying your best, and never giving up, even when the odds seem impossible. Sophie clutched her trophy tighter. That's what my mom used to say before she stopped. Obama nodded like he understood. Your mom sounds like a wise woman, he said softly. Then, reaching into his pocket, he pulled out his phone. Hey Sophie, what grade are you in? Marcus stepped forward quickly. That's very kind, but we couldn't. Mr. Thompson, Obama interrupted, somehow knowing Marcus's name without being told. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is let others help us. I learned that from my mother. The gas station's lights continued their steady hum as two fathers, one famous, one not, stood in its fluorescent glow, understanding passing between them. Sophie watched, barely breathing, as Obama began typing something on his phone. I've got a friend who runs a community leadership program, he said casually, like he wasn't about to change their lives forever. She's been looking for someone reliable, someone who understands the importance of education and dreams. The pay's good, and it comes with some interesting perks. His eyes twinkled as he glanced at Sophie, like access to debate camps and scholarships. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it again. Sophie could see tears shining in her father's eyes, though he was trying hard to hide them. Marcus started, but Obama was already pressing send on his phone. The interview's tomorrow at 10 a.m., he said. And Sophie, he turned to her, his expression serious. Keep practicing those debate techniques. Something tells me you're going to need them. As if in a dream, Sophie watched Obama reach into his SUV and pull out something she couldn't quite see in the darkness. He handed it to her father, speaking too quietly for her to hear. Whatever he said made her dad's shoulders straighten, made him stand taller than she'd seen in months. The night was about to become even more unbelievable. But for now, Sophie Thompson sat in her father's old Honda Civic, watching her hero talk to her dad like they were old friends, and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope, as bright and steady as the stars above the gas station's fluorescent glow. Obama had seen that look before, the one in Marcus Thompson's eyes. It was the same look his mother had worn on countless nights, trying to make impossible math work. Standing there in the gas station's harsh light, he wasn't just seeing Marcus and Sophie, he was seeing himself and his mom 25 years ago. Sophie, Obama said, turning back to the car window where the young girl sat transfixed. Want to show me that debate technique you've been practicing? Sophie's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. She looked at her father, seeking permission. Marcus nodded, a small smile breaking through his tired expression. The parking lot was empty except for their two vehicles. The gas station's lights created a makeshift stage, their shadows stretching long across the concrete. Sophie climbed out of the car, her worn trophy clutched tight against her school uniform. My mom used to help me practice, Sophie said quietly as she prepared her stance, before she got sick. Obama felt something tighten in his chest. He'd lost his grandmother to cancer. He knew that particular kind of pain. My mom was my first debate coach, he shared. She taught me that speaking isn't just about winning arguments, it's about connecting with people. Sophie nodded like she understood completely. Then, with a determination that reminded him of himself at that age, she demonstrated her opening statement technique. Her materials were literally falling apart, notes scattered, but her delivery was solid. Natural talent combined with heart. Marcus watched from beside the car, and Obama recognized the expression on his face, fierce pride wrestling with helpless frustration. You've got good form, Obama told Sophie, but try projecting your voice a little more. Like this, he demonstrated, then watched as Sophie mimicked his technique perfectly on the first try. Her face broke into a huge grin, the kind that reminded him why he'd fallen in love with public service in the first place. As Sophie practiced, Obama moved closer to Marcus. How long has it been? He asked quietly. Since her mom? 3 years, Marcus replied, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Caroline she was everything to us. After she got sick, the medical bills, he trailed off. Obama understood. One bad break was sometimes all it took to knock a family's whole world sideways. You know what I remember most about being Sophie's age? Obama said, watching the girl perfect another technique. Not the times we struggled. I remember my mom being there, every school event, every moment she could spare between jobs. That's what Sophie will remember too. Marcus swallowed hard. I just wish I could give her more. You're giving her everything that matters. Obama pulled out his phone again, sending another quick text. That job at the community center, it comes with health insurance, full coverage. He saw Marcus's shoulders shake slightly, though the other man quickly steadied himself. Obama pretended not to notice, giving him a moment to compose himself. Hey, future senator, he called out to Sophie, come here a second. Sophie jogged over, slightly out of breath but beaming. First thing tomorrow, Obama said, you and your dad are going to meet my friend Sarah at the Obama Foundation Community Center. She's got some program coordinator duties she needs help with. He winked at Sophie, including organizing debate camps, all expenses paid. Sophie's eyes grew impossibly wider. Real debate camps? Can't have my newest protege missing out on proper training, can we? Marcus started to protest again, but Obama held up a hand. Mr. Thompson, when I was growing up, people helped my mom and me. Teachers, community leaders, neighbors. They showed me that success isn't about making it on your own. It's about lifting each other up. The words hung in the air, weighted with truth. In the distance, a car honked on the highway, but here in their little bubble of fluorescent light, time seemed to stand still. Obama reached into his SUV one more time, pulling out something that would make this night truly unforgettable. It was a leather portfolio, barely used, with a small engraved plate reading Dreams in Action, B.O. As he handed it to Marcus, Obama felt the familiar warmth that came with these moments, the ones far from cameras and reporters, the ones that reminded him why he'd chosen public service in the first place. There's one more thing, Obama said, his voice carrying a hint of something that made both Marcus and Sophie look up. He reached for his back pocket, where he'd slipped something that would change this night from memorable to miraculous. When I was about Sophie's age, Obama began, leaning against his SUV, my mom and I lived in a small apartment in Honolulu. Some nights, she'd work double shifts just so I could have the supplies I needed for school. One winter night, kind of like this one, we were almost out of gas. Sophie moved closer to her father, both of them hanging on every word. The gas station's lights hummed overhead, creating a small circle of warmth in the cold November night. This man pulled up next to us in a nice car. Mom was counting pennies for gas, just like you were tonight. Mr. Thompson. Obama's voice was soft but clear. This stranger, he could have just driven away. Instead, he filled up our tank. But more than that, He told my mom something I never forgot. Marcus had one arm around Sophie now, his other still clutching the portfolio. What did he say? He said, "Sometimes angels wear regular clothes, ma'am, and sometimes they need help too." Obama smiled at the memory. My mom, she was proud, like you, Mr. Thompson. She tried to refuse, but this man told her that one day I'd be in a position to help someone else, and that would be how she could pay him back. Sophie's eyes were wide. Did you ever find out who he was? No, Obama shook his head, but I made a promise that night. Every time I see someone who reminds me of my mom and me from back then, I remember what that stranger did for us. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out an envelope. That's why I want to tell you both something important. Mr. Thompson, that job at the community center, it's not charity. We really do need someone with your work ethic, someone who understands what it means to never give up. Marcus swallowed hard, his arm tightening around Sophie. I appreciate that, but, Dad, Sophie interrupted softly, looking up at her father. Remember what Mom always said about accepting help gracefully? Marcus's breath caught. Obama watched as something shifted in the father's eyes, a battle between pride and love, between wanting to do it all alone and knowing that sometimes the bravest thing was accepting help. Caroline was right, Marcus whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Then louder, what's in the envelope, Mr. President? Obama handed it over. 2 things. First, a letter for the interview tomorrow, though between us, it's really just a formality. Sarah's been looking for someone like you for months. And second, he smiled at Sophie, a full scholarship voucher for the National Youth Leadership Academy. Can't have my newest protege missing any opportunities. Sophie gasped. Marcus opened the envelope with trembling fingers, staring at the contents like they might disappear. I made another promise to myself, Obama continued. Every time I speak publicly, I look for the kids in the crowd who remind me of myself at that age, the ones with the biggest dreams but the smallest resources, because that stranger at the gas station, he didn't just fill up our tank that night, he filled us with hope. Tears were flowing freely down Marcus's cheeks now, but he didn't try to hide them anymore. I don't know how to thank you. Yes, you do, Obama said gently. You'll do it by letting Sophie soar, by accepting this job and showing her that it's okay to let others help sometimes. And one day, when she's grown and someone else needs help, she'll remember this night. Sophie hugged her trophy tight. I promise I'll study really hard every day. I know you will, future senator. As they prepared to leave, Sophie suddenly ran forward and hugged Obama around the waist. He hugged her back, remembering all the times he'd dreamed of meeting his own heroes at her age. Mr. President, she looked up at him. That man who helped you and your mom, I think maybe he was an angel. Obama glanced at Marcus, who was watching his daughter with a look of pure love. Maybe he was, Sophie, and maybe angels are still out there, wearing regular clothes, showing up at gas stations when we need them most. As the Thompsons got back into their car, Obama could hear Sophie chattering excitedly about tomorrow, but it was Marcus's transformation that struck him most, how the weight seemed to have lifted from his shoulders, replaced by something that looked a lot like hope. Before they drove away, Marcus rolled down his window. Mr. President, thank you, not just for everything, but for helping me remember what Caroline always knew. Sometimes the strongest thing we can do is let others help carry the load. Obama nodded, understanding passing between them. As the old Honda pulled away, he watched its taillights disappear into the night, his phone buzzing with Sarah confirming tomorrow's meeting. What Marcus and Sophie didn't know yet was that this night, this chance encounter at a gas station, was about to change their lives in ways they couldn't imagine, because Barack Obama had one more surprise planned, one that would prove that sometimes the biggest dreams come true in the smallest moments, and that angels really do wear regular clothes. The next morning dawned bright and cold. Sophie woke up earlier than usual, her heart racing with memories of the night before. For a moment, she worried it had all been a dream, but there it was, sitting on her dresser next to her debate trophies, the leather portfolio with Barack Obama's initials, as real as the morning sunlight streaming through her window. In the kitchen, Marcus was already dressed in his best shirt, making pancakes, something they hadn't done since Mom died. The sight made Sophie's throat tight with happiness. Big day today, he said, flipping a perfectly golden pancake. You ready to see the Obama Foundation Center? They arrived at the community center at 9:45 a.m. The building was modern, all glass and hope, gleaming in the morning sun. Sophie clutched her trophy. She hadn't been able to leave it behind. As they walked through the automatic doors, a woman in a professional blazer was waiting for them. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Sarah. President Obama called me about you." She shook Marcus's hand, then smiled at Sophie. "And you must be our future leader." Before Sophie could respond, another voice joined the conversation. "I told you she's got the spark." Barack Obama walked in, dressed casually but still presidential. "But first, there's something we need to take care of." He led them down a hallway lined with photos of community leaders and young activists. They stopped at a door marked Youth Development. "This," Obama said with a grin, "is every young leader's dream office." The door swung open to reveal a space filled with debate materials, leadership books, and presentation equipment. Sophie's jaw dropped, but it was what stood in the center that made her grab her father's hand in excitement: a small podium set up with professional microphones, and beside it, a certificate with her name, Sophie Thompson, Obama Foundation Youth Leadership Scholar. "Your new program coordinator position," Obama continued to Marcus, "includes overseeing our youth scholarship program, because who better to understand what these kids need than someone who's been there?" Marcus nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Sophie had never seen him stand so tall. On the wall hung a framed photograph that made both Sophie and Marcus catch their breath. It was Caroline at a community leadership event 3 years ago, smiling at the camera. One hand raised as she asked a question during the QA session. "How did you?" Marcus couldn't finish the question. "I had our team look through the archives," Obama explained softly. "Your wife was at one of my town halls when I was senator. Every event, we photograph the audience. Sometimes the smallest moments become the most precious memories." Sophie touched the photo gently, tracing her mother's smile. "She looks so proud." "She was always proudest watching you grow," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "She'd be so amazed by who you're becoming." Obama watched them for a moment, then said quietly, "You know what I think? Some angels wear regular clothes, some wear professional suits, and some watch over us from somewhere even higher than the balcony seats." Sophie hugged her new certificate close, looking from her father to Obama to her mother's smiling face in the photograph. Yesterday, they'd been running on empty, not just their gas tank but their hopes. Now, standing in this room full of possibilities, she felt like they could change the world. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of orientation, laughter, and plans for the future. Sophie met other young leaders in the program. Marcus discussed his new role with Sarah, and Obama watched it all unfold with the satisfaction of someone who remembered what it felt like to need help and was grateful to be able to give it. As they prepared to leave, Sophie found Obama standing by the photo of her mother. "Mr. President," she said quietly, "that man who helped you and your mom at the gas station, do you think he knew what would happen? That you'd help other people one day?" Obama smiled. "I think he knew something even more important, that when we help each other, we create a chain reaction of good that goes on forever. Your mom knew it too." He gestured to the center full of young people, the new scholarship program, her father's proud face. "Now you're part of that chain." Above them, Caroline's photo seemed to smile down on the scene, a reminder that sometimes the biggest assists come from heaven itself. And there, in the Obama Foundation Community Center, surrounded by old friends and new beginnings, the miracle that began at a gas station completed its transformation. Because the real gift hadn't been the job, the scholarship, or even the youth program. The real gift was the reminder that no one has to run on empty alone. Not when there are angels in regular clothes ready to help fill our tanks with hope. One small act of kindness at a time.